I never thought my own sister would humiliate me on the happiest day of her life. At the church doors, she looked me straight in the eye and hissed, "Emily, you're nothing but a garbage collector. Stay out of my wedding." My parents didn't flinch, they agreed, as if cutting me out was the natural order of things. None of them knew the truth. The garbage collector, they mocked, was the CEO of a private aviation empire worth millions. I owned more jets than most of their so-called elite guests had ever set foot on. I walked away that day, whispering to myself, "Fine, we have no relationship now." But months later, when the world saw my luxury wedding broadcast on national TV, my phone exploded with 100 desperate calls. Suddenly, the family that disowned me wanted back in. From the very beginning, our family dynamic was painfully clear. Rachel was the golden child, and I was the afterthought. She was 3 years older, dazzling with her sharp wit and perfect smile. My parents, John and Linda, treated her like a rising star, while I was the shadow left in her glow. When Rachel brought home an A in math, my parents whisked her off for ice cream. When I came home with a perfect report card, straight A's, they barely looked up. "Good job, Emily," my mom muttered once, while stirring a pot of soup. My father didn't even glance up from the newspaper. The message sank in early. Rachel mattered, and I didn't. The favoritism was brutal. At dinner parties, my mom would beam with pride and announce, "Rachel is already preparing for law school. She's going to be a leader." Then, with the same breath, she'd wave her hand at me. "Emily helps out around the house. She's quiet, but sweet." Quiet but sweet, that was my entire identity to them. Rachel thrived under their constant validation. She wore it like armor, strutting through high school as if she owned the world. And maybe she did, in their eyes. Meanwhile, I sat in the corner of every family event, listening to praise I would never receive, clapping for achievements no one expected from me. Even when I tried to share my small victories, they fell flat. When I made the honor roll for the 3rd semester in a row, I told my dad. He smiled absently, then turned to Rachel. "So, how's debate team? Did you crush it again?" My accomplishment was erased in a heartbeat. I started to wonder if invisibility was my destiny. Rachel was born to shine. I was born to disappear. But deep down, a quiet anger was taking root. One day, I promised myself, I wouldn't just be noticed, I would be unforgettable. The turning point came when I was 15. My high school arranged a field trip to the airport, and while most of my classmates were bored, I was electrified. The roar of the engines, the controlled chaos of the runways, the sheer elegance of a jet slicing into the sky, it felt like I had just glimpsed my future. I pressed my hands against the glass, heart pounding, thinking, this is it. This is where I belong. That evening at dinner, I tried to share my excitement. "I think I've found what I want to do," I told my family, my voice trembling with hope. "Aviation. I want to learn everything about planes, airports, logistics, maybe even start my own company one day." Rachel nearly spat out her drink. "Planes? Oh, please. What are you going to do, Emily, hand out peanuts and pick up trash from the aisles?" She laughed so hard she had to wipe tears from her eyes. My parents didn't defend me. They chuckled along, as if her cruelty was harmless fun. My mother shook her head. "That's not a real career, honey. Rachel's aiming for law school. That's what a serious path looks like." Their dismissal stung worse than Rachel's laughter. I looked down at my plate, the roast chicken suddenly tasteless in my mouth. They didn't see it, the spark inside me, the way the airport had made me feel alive for the first time. To them, I was still the quiet, sweet daughter destined to stay in the background. That night, lying awake in my small bedroom, I made a vow. If they wouldn't believe in me, I would believe in myself. If they wouldn't give me a chance, I'd carve my own path. Their laughter would fuel me. Their indifference would become my fire. Someday, they'd see me not as the forgotten daughter but as the one who soared higher than any of them ever imagined. College was supposed to be a fresh start, but for me it was a battlefield. While Rachel headed off to Yale with our parents proudly footing every bill, I was left to scrape together scholarships, loans, and 2 part-time jobs just to afford a state university with a decent aviation management program. During breaks, Rachel came home glowing with stories of Ivy League parties, professors who adored her, and influential connections. My parents clung to every word, nodding as if she were already a Supreme Court justice. When it was my turn to share, their eyes glazed over. "Still doing that airplane thing?" my dad would ask, not even pretending to care. The truth was, I was exhausted. I worked nights at a diner, mornings at the campus library, and squeezed classes in between. My hands smelled like coffee and grease. My eyes stung from lack of sleep. But I refused to quit. Every shift, every dollar saved, was proof I was fighting for a dream no one else believed in. One Thanksgiving, I mentioned casually that I'd landed an internship with a major airline. I thought just maybe they would be proud. My mom passed me the mashed potatoes without looking up. My dad smirked. "So, does that mean we get discounted tickets now?" Rachel leaned back in her chair, smiling like a queen. "Still determined to be a glorified waitress in the sky, huh?" The room erupted in laughter at me. I forced a smile, my cheeks burning, and said nothing. Inside, though, something hardened. I realized I would never get their validation, and maybe I didn't need it. So I stopped sharing my milestones with them. When I aced exams, I celebrated alone. When I earned my certifications, I tucked the papers away in a drawer. Their silence became my armor. Their indifference, my training ground. Because one day, I knew, the world would hear my name even if my own family never did. After graduation, I refused to settle for a safe job. While Rachel slipped seamlessly into her fiancé's law firm circles, I was in a cramped office at a regional airline, earning barely enough to cover rent. But every night, after my shift ended, I stayed behind, studying balance sheets, flight schedules, maintenance reports, anything I could get my hands on. One evening, my manager found me still at my desk, cross-checking routes with weather data. He raised an eyebrow. "You're either crazy or obsessed, Emily." "Maybe both," I admitted with a tired grin. He became my first mentor, the first person who didn't laugh when I said, "I want to run my own aviation company one day." He connected me with investors, most of whom scoffed. Too young, too inexperienced. And a woman in aviation? They waved me off before I could finish my pitch. But rejection only sharpened me. I revised my business plan a dozen times, poured every ounce of energy into making it bulletproof. Finally, one investor, a woman named Patricia, leaned back in her chair after grilling me for hours and said, "You remind me of myself. Stubborn. Hungry. I'll give you a chance." With her seed money and a small loan I dared not tell my family about, I leased my first jet. Just one. A single aircraft with a crew that was practically held together by duct tape and ambition. I named the company Skyline Executive Aviation. The first months nearly broke me. I slept on a couch in the office, answering phones, scheduling flights, even stepping in as a flight attendant when needed. I remember scrubbing down the cabin at 2 a.m, my hands raw from cleaner, whispering to myself, "This will be worth it. One day, they'll all see." My family? They had no idea. When I visited home, they asked nothing. Rachel tossed out lines like, "Still cleaning up after passengers, Emily?" And my parents chuckled. I bit my tongue, hiding the truth. While they mocked me, I was building the foundation of an empire. 2 years into Skyline, I was drowning. Payroll loomed every month like a guillotine. Maintenance delays, demanding clients, and the constant fear of failure kept me awake at night. I thought more than once about quitting. But then it happened, our first real break. A CEO of a mid-sized tech firm booked a last-minute charter after his usual service canceled. He stepped onto my jet scowling, clearly expecting disaster. By the time he landed, he was grinning. "I've never seen service like this," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "You'll hear from me again." He kept his promise. Within weeks, he recommended us to his colleagues. Then came a Hollywood producer, then a senator's aide, then a European banker. Word spread like wildfire. Skyline was discreet, reliable, and personal. Suddenly, my single jet wasn't enough. I acquired a second, then a third. By my 28th birthday, we had a fleet of 5. The growth was relentless. Investors circled back, the same ones who once dismissed me. Now they wanted in. I took their money, but on my terms. By 30, I owned the jets outright, and expanded operations to 3 major cities. At 32, we were valued at over 70 million, with clients ranging from Fortune 500 CEOs to celebrities who flew incognito. I moved into a penthouse overlooking the skyline. My skyline. At night, I'd stand on the balcony, the city lights flickering below, and think, they'll never know. They'll never ask. Because they didn't. When I went home for Thanksgiving, my father asked, as usual, "Still doing that airplane thing?" I smiled tightly. "Yes, Dad. Still doing that airplane thing." Rachel smirked across the table. "You must be really good at picking up trash." I wanted to scream the truth that the governor she was desperate to impress had flown with me just last month, that the celebrities she gushed about were on a first-name basis with me, but I stayed silent. Let them believe their version. Because one day, reality would crash into them harder than any plane hitting turbulence. The envelope arrived on a Monday morning, thick and elegant, sealed with gold initials, R. Daniel. My sister Rachel was getting married. For a moment, I let myself hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance for us to reconnect not as rivals, but as sisters. I opened it carefully, scanning the embossed lettering. Ceremony details at St. Patrick's Cathedral, but nothing about the reception. My stomach dropped. Surely it was a mistake. That evening, I called her. After 3 tries, she finally answered, her tone sharp. "Emily, what is it?" "I'm busy with wedding planning." "I got your invitation," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "It looks beautiful, but I think some information is missing. There are no details about the reception." A long pause. I could almost hear her smirk. "That's not a mistake," she said flatly. "The reception is exclusive. Senators, CEOs, people who matter. I can't have you there." My throat tightened. "What do you mean you can't have me there? I'm your sister." Her voice dripped with disdain. "Emily, come on. What would Daniel's family think if they knew my sister collects garbage on airplanes? You'd embarrass me." The words pierced like glass shards. "I don't collect garbage, Rachel. I run an aviation company." She laughed, that same cruel laugh I'd heard since childhood. "Right. Aviation executive, sure. Keep telling yourself that." I hung up shaking. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Against my better judgment, I dialed my parents. Maybe they'd defend me. Maybe someone in my family would finally stand up for me. My mother answered first. "Oh, Emily, don't take it personally. Rachel just wants everything perfect. The governor might be there." My father chimed in, his voice firm. "Your sister's right to be cautious. This is important for her future. Don't make it harder." I swallowed hard, the betrayal choking me. "So you're all fine with this? With cutting me out like I'm nothing?" Silence. Then my father said the words that broke whatever ties remained. "She is right." My heart went cold. A strange clarity washed over me. "Fine," I whispered. "We have no relationship now." And I ended the call. That night, I sat in my penthouse, surrounded by everything I had built on my own. For years I had longed for their approval, begged silently to be seen. But now, staring at the city skyline glittering beneath me, I realized the truth. They never would. And maybe I didn't need them to. Still, the wound was raw. My own sister had erased me from her wedding as if I were shameful. My parents had agreed. The people meant to protect me had turned their backs. The humiliation burned deeper than anything I'd ever endured. But it also ignited something fierce inside me. If they thought I didn't belong in their world, they were about to learn I had built a world far greater than theirs, a world they couldn't ignore forever. 6 months after Rachel's wedding, while she paraded honeymoon photos from Italy, I was planning something far bigger, my own wedding. But unlike hers, mine wasn't just a ceremony. It was a statement. Matthew, the man I had fallen in love with, understood me in ways my family never could. He didn't care about appearances or status, he cared about me. When we decided to marry, I told him I wanted it to be spectacular. Not out of vanity, but because my entire life had been spent being silenced, dismissed, erased. This wedding would not be hidden. It would be unforgettable. We chose the Crystal Ballroom at the historic Blackstone Hotel in Chicago. with chandeliers glittering like constellations overhead. Our guest list wasn't filled with relatives who mocked me, but with people who valued me. CEOs I had flown across oceans, entertainers who trusted my discretion, and politicians who privately thanked me for saving their schedules countless times. A producer friend suggested turning the event into a televised feature on luxury weddings of the year. At first, I hesitated. Then I realized this wasn't just a wedding, it was the perfect reveal. For the first time, the world and eventually, my family would see me as I truly was. The day arrived in a blur of silk gowns, camera flashes, and champagne toasts. I walked down the aisle in a custom dress, shimmering with hand-sewn pearls, every step echoing with triumph. Matthew's eyes filled with pride as he whispered, "You deserve every moment of this." The reception was nothing short of breathtaking. The air hummed with music, laughter, and the clinking of crystal glasses. The television crew captured every detail: the gourmet banquet, the private jet, themed decor, the heartfelt speeches from clients who had become lifelong friends. Some of them were household names, actors, philanthropists, moguls who could make Rachel's precious senators look like small-town mayors. When the documentary aired 2 weeks later, the response was explosive. Headlines called it the aviation wedding of the year. Photos of me and Matthew filled glossy magazines, my company logo gleaming in the background. Interviews praised not just the extravagance but the story, the self-made woman who had built an empire from scratch. And then my phone started buzzing. One missed call, then 5, then 10. Within hours, I had nearly 100. Rachel, my parents, aunts, cousins, people who had ignored me for years were suddenly desperate to talk. They had watched it all unfold on TV. They saw the jets, the power, the respect. They finally saw me. I stared at the screen lighting up with their names, a hollow laugh escaping my throat. For years I had begged for their recognition. Now, I had all of it and I wasn't sure I wanted any. The morning after the documentary aired, my phone looked like it had exploded. 97 missed calls. By noon it was over 100. Voicemails stacked one after another, my parents' voices shifting from excitement to desperation. "Emily, sweetheart, we saw your wedding. You looked incredible. We're so proud of you. Emily, please call us back. We didn't know. We didn't realize what you've become." Rachel's message came last, her voice trembling. "Emily, I was wrong. I didn't know. Can we talk?" For years, I had begged them silently to notice me. And now, finally, they did because of televised chandeliers, private jets, and flashing cameras. But it wasn't pride. It wasn't love. It was convenience. They wanted me because I was no longer an embarrassment, I was leverage. I set my phone down and let it buzz on the marble countertop, vibrating against the glass of champagne I hadn't finished the night before. 100 calls, and yet not a single word of those messages could undo what they had said at Rachel's wedding. She is right. Those 3 words had sliced deeper than any knife. That evening, Matthew found me staring at the skyline from our penthouse balcony. "Are you going to answer them?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "Not now. Maybe not ever. It's your choice," he said, slipping his hand into mine. "Just remember, you don't owe them anything." And he was right. My family's rejection had been the wound of my life, but it had also been the fire that forged me. I no longer needed their validation to prove my worth. I had built an empire, found love, and created a future brighter than any they had imagined for me. As the phone buzzed again, I silenced it for good. 100 calls would not erase a lifetime of dismissal. Respect mattered more than blood, and without it, family was just a word. For the first time in years, I felt free.